There's so many big crowds for that one. We're about to get started, so if you guys want to come over back here, grab your food and drinks. Hey,
how are you?
We're about to get started, if you guys want to come over and back there.
Yeah, sit back here.
Yeah, right. Okay. I wouldn't sign up for you, so. Hey, Keith.
Okay, yeah, they're fine.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we'd like to ask everybody that's in the bar area if you can kindly make your way into the dining section as the Q&A portion of the evening will be taking place in the dining area. So once again, if you're in the bar area, you want to pick up your final drink and head on over to the dining area as the Q&A section is about to start.
That's what you're reading, right? You go to our Facebook page.
As long as if you go to the Apple video,
You probably want to get yourself, you want to get closer to this light? Get closer to the light?
No, I think it's fine. This is good. So I'll leave you with it. Right? So I'm going to move
Where's Jeff go?
Let's go.
Where's Jeff?
Yeah. So how are you? All right. So I know we're supposed to be in the bar and looking at our phones right now. But anyway, thank you for coming out this evening. My name is Dux Raymond Sy. I serve as CMO of AvePoint. I'm sure you know who this guy is. In case, who is this guy? Who's this guy? Right. So anyway, thank you for coming over. What's that? Yes, please. Is it no? Yeah. Other. All right. All right. So again, thank you for coming over tonight. First and foremost, props to the New Jersey SharePoint user group, New York SharePoint user group, for organizing this and allowing us to participate in this session. So big props to everybody. And we're very fortunate and glad to have Jeff with us tonight. So, first thing, Jeff, how was the marathon?
I finished.
You did, so
Yeah, it was pretty good.
All right. So Jeff's in town for
And I beat your boss by 30 minutes.
exactly.
Right. Who's keeping score?
That's right. So, what was your time, if you care to share? With
It was 4:07, which for my age is not bad.
That's right. And you're what? In your 30s?
35.
35. All right. So Jeff turned 35. But it's a great pleasure to have you here. I know this is a treat for everybody, especially who don't get to see Jeff on a regular basis. Come on over, guys. Come down. We got. All right. Okay. Yeah. So obviously, a lot of folks will open this up for a Q&A in a second, but we'll have a quick chat, just hear all the latest and greatest, and think about questions if you have for Jeff around your investments around SharePoint, Office 365, OneDrive, and Office. So Jeff, what have you been working on lately, especially after Ignite? I know Ignite was big, a lot of announcements, so what's been keeping you busy?
Yeah, first, I want to thank you guys for sponsoring the event and everybody for coming out of your busy schedule. It's kind of humbling to see people after hours instead of going home to come drink beer and learn about SharePoint. So that's great. It has been a busy, as you know, busy year for us. We've been at this for a while. It's almost like we have a new engine of growth and innovation in Microsoft and Office 365. Biggest year in the history of SharePoint. We're now at 120 million monthly active users in Office 365. Most feature releases we've done in a year, 14 blog posts at Ignite. The community, thank you, has done more than ever. We've got, in the month after Ignite, 16 SharePoint Saturdays, including a record 6 2 weeks ago.
That's right.
I am headed on Thursday to Oslo, Norway for their event. Also this weekend is SharePoint Saturday Vienna, their first event. So it's great to see both long-time communities like New York and New Jersey going well, but also some new ones forming. And we don't take any of that for granted. All of you get to choose where you spend time, and it's our responsibility to deliver not just technology that helps your organizations work better together, but build a community where you can grow your career, have impact. And we always say that SharePoint's like a Lego toolkit, and technology people are attracted to it, help build solutions that transform their companies, help you grow your careers, and we're sort of humbled to be here, and I'm happy to talk about whatever anybody wants to chat about tonight, but I thought I'd kick it off with just thanking people for showing up and supporting us.
So I know we had this conversation a while ago, Jeff, and in case a lot of you don't know, obviously Jeff is officially christened as the father of SharePoint. Godfather. Right? You're in New York, right? So it's Godfather's SharePoint.
Grandfather.
But I know we had this conversation, I remember 2010 or 2011 when the SharePoint conference. What was the first time?
Was that when you led the Gangnam Style
No, this was
dance?
before.
Okay.
This was before. But what was that conversation like with Bill Gates when he first talked to you about this idea of SharePoint?
He was, Bill has, there was this line from A Christmas Story. Did anybody remember the line where the kid says, "My dad worked in profanity like great artists worked in oils"? Well, Bill certainly had high aspirations. Anything you went to him and said, "Hey, we've got this idea. We're going to make the server for Office, and we're going to give every company that aspires to have an intranet that's as great as the best intranet. That's what we're going to go build." And he loved the idea. He beat up on us for a lot of stuff. Some of our best feedback was from Bill over the years. And actually, we had a chance to meet with him. It's probably about 6 weeks ago, and we talked about the integration of SharePoint with JavaScript framework for customizing it, with Power Apps for building solutions and Flow, Teams integration. The thing that blew Bill away, I guess I'm sort of directing to the most recent discussion we had with him, is we showed him the growth of our customer adoption. So just to pick one customer, Accenture. Accenture now has 400,000 users of SharePoint in the cloud, and their storage has grown from half a petabyte 2 years ago to 2 petabytes now. And Andrew Wilson, the CIO of Accenture, told me at Ignite they'll be at 6 petabytes soon.
Wow.
So Bill loved that. Bill likes technology, of course, but technology applied to solving user problems and being successful. So he certainly pushed us from the very first meeting to the meeting a few weeks ago to go big. And anytime we set a goal that was here, we could always count on Bill to use some choice words to tell us the goal was a little bit higher than what we set with. So that's, that was a typical Bill meeting.
So this was, the first conversation was what, late 90s, I guess?
Yeah, 98, 99 is when we sort of, brought in a really simple plan that said, we want bottoms-up viral collaboration We want something that's got a top-down information architecture so people have a coherent intranet. It's got to be out of the box so people can see value in minutes, not months. But it's something that we want to have platforms so developers can tailor it to different companies. I know people here tonight from pharmaceutical companies, from banking companies, and you have very different needs and very different solutions. And we love to solve 100% of your needs, but we realize, maybe we can only solve the 80, 90%, and we want to give you a platform for solving the rest. And Bill liked that framing of being an application that would do most things out of the box, but people could tailor it to very unique business needs.
Wow, so fast forward to today. So talking about solving customer needs, right? Accenture being a great example. What are those common feedback have you gotten in the last couple months, especially around innovations in the cloud and customers' needs around hybrid, for example, or all these requirements around security and compliance? What's coming up on top of your list?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like 5 years ago, when we did these meetings, it was a little bit tough because people would say, "I'm not allowed to go to the cloud. My company won't let us do that." And that dialogue's obviously changed a lot. Not every company is at that point where they're running in the cloud in Office 365, but I think it's well understood that the economics are so much better in the cloud. Security is better in the cloud, and it's also, frankly, way more fun to use the cloud because you're getting new things to play with and add value to your organization every week, as opposed to like being on a 2-year IT deployment project. And so the thing that is top of mind for most of customers right now is help me have the conversation on security. That I have people in my organization that think the cloud is compromising security. And Jeff, I've heard you pitch that you actually get more secure by going to the cloud. If you think about your data centers and the separation of duties that you have and people operating those data centers, the number of people who can elevate privileges or who can access data, new security controls, encryption, two-factor authentication, conditional access, data loss prevention, e-discovery, auditing, reporting. When we talk to most companies about that long list of things who are maybe on 5-year-old versions of technology they're running on their old data centers, they will admit that they're not as secure as we can give you the tools to be in the cloud. And so that is something we lean into pretty hard. Perhaps sometimes I lean into it too hard, but I would definitely lay out that the biggest discussion I have with customers is security is a benefit of going to the cloud, not a trade-off of it. And so we talk about that. Obviously, we're still committed to on-premises servers. We're doing another one of those. So we're not going to be overly heavy-handed about it, but we will lean in that best economics, best collaboration, best security, and again, for anybody who's here tonight, the most fun and impact in your career is being able to use technologies that are 5 days old, not 5 years old. And so that's the pitch. It sometimes goes great. It sometimes lands so-so, but I think, as you can see with the growth we've had with 120 million users, $20 billion in annualized revenue that we get from our cloud business, that I think we're past the tipping point in the market on the cloud.
I mean, so out of curiosity, folks in this room, who's in Office 365 already? No judgments here. All right, that's good. Who's about to go or planning to go? Who's still not going? All right, so
I've got a white paper to hand to your CSO. It might work, it might not. I'll talk to you afterwards.
no, buy them drinks tonight.
They probably are not going to go back to their chief legal officer and say, "Jeff bought me drinks. We should go to the cloud."
There you go.
Kind of bad.
Yeah.
That's just. I found that doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Yeah, I thought that worked for SharePoint.
The white paper that really clearly enumerates the greater security and controls you have in the cloud sometimes works. Anyway.
Awesome. So yeah, the recent earnings report, right? Obviously, a glaring evidence of the growth of Office 365, SharePoint Online. Anything you can share? What's coming up the pipe in the next couple months, or maybe next 6 months, that we should expect and look forward to?
Yeah, I think it's hard to summarize the 14 blog posts we did in like a few words, but I think if I had to break it down by audience, a huge focus we have is on collaboration, making it really easy for a team of people to work together with less training, less friction. So you've seen us connect and simplify how easy it is to work with somebody on a PowerPoint document and get notifications. One of the features we're rolling out now that I'm using that you probably haven't seen yet is notifications on your phone. So Dux could be working on a presentation for an event, and I've made a comment on your presentation that you should change the first slide. You'll get a notification on your phone that Jeff made this comment. And so there's a
So
long...
you're talking about SMS or?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So we're doing mobile notifications, more richer versioning activities. You can open up your document or the list of documents, see who's read it, who's edited it. We just rolled out a feature in OneDrive so you can see who's read the document. A lot of people tell us, hey, I worked on this great spreadsheet. I sent it out to 20 people before the meeting. I showed up to the meeting, and I don't have a clue. Like, did anybody read this thing? You can now hover on that document in OneDrive, and you see, oh, like half the room has seen it. That's great. I can sort of assume that in the meeting. So one big focus is on collaboration. Next focus is on building solutions that, whether it's our Power Apps tool or JavaScript for professional developers, we think we've made it easier than ever before to, whatever you're trying to build, like a beautiful intranet, a mobile application. I would, part of the reason people are here tonight and the reason we have the vibrant community we have in SharePoint is we're the easiest way to build an app, that you don't have to start from scratch. That's why, one of my favorite things to watch is the number of people who list SharePoint as a skill on LinkedIn, and we're about 1.4 million people. There's about 200 million people.
Who's counting, right?
I'm counting.
Okay.
I'm counting. 407 and 1.4 million.
Oh, there you go.
I was good at math, not words. And so, there's a couple hundred million people using the product, but 1.4 million people self-identify as having it as a skill with their career. And so we want to make those people incredibly successful with their precious time. And so whether they're a professional developer in JavaScript, or somebody who doesn't want to code but wants to build a great mobile app. One of our favorite ones we've done in the last year, we work with NASCAR. So how every race is tracked at NASCAR, all the resources for the race that employees of NASCAR, their vendors, their partners use, is a Power App backed by SharePoint. Gorgeous, it's fast, it's easy to use. I've talked to the guys at NASCAR who built the thing. They keep asking me to go to the Daytona 500, which I should totally do. And it's great. So collaboration, building solutions, and then IT controls that people have told us they want to have insights into what's going on in their organization. Who's sharing content outside? What policies should they set on that? Maybe their highly confidential sites should only be required, should require trusted devices. So we've got stuff for users, stuff for developers, stuff for IT. I think our biggest problem, to be honest, is we've done so much work in the last 6 months, and we've got so much in the 6 months ahead, that explaining it simply so people can digest it all is part of the challenge. And I know that's something you guys all do in your organizations on our behalf. But we've got a lot of stuff coming in terms of technology, sea changes. The biggest things coming on are artificial intelligence and virtual reality. We are doing work in that space. You'll see more in the next year from us. If you had to get me to boil it down to one sentence, it really is, through the cloud, you can use technology that's 5 days old as opposed to 5 years old. And it'll help you delight your users and keep your company on the cutting edge and keep your information secure.
And what I love about this story is, one can say, well, let's go full cloud, 100%, but we also have options, right? So the hybrid scenario at Ignite, Build Better session, that was really good, and it shows a clear path on how we do hybrid in 2016. And then 2019 is coming out fairly soon too. So there's all these different models that we can pick and choose from, depending on the business needs and what we need to get done.
Yeah, and that's a chance for me to sort of talk a little more about Ignite and sort of who cares about math. We had about 60 sessions at Ignite. They're all online, so you can all, I know most people here didn't get a chance to go, but we put them all online. We had the most attendees of any product, the highest ratings of any product. #SharePoint was the #1 on social media. And one of the reasons, I think, is because we had some things for people in the cloud. But we also had the hybrid sessions that must have had like 1,500 people, 2,000 just for that session. And so if you just want user OneDrives in the cloud, or you want your team sites in the cloud, but you have your most secure intranet or your workflow applications on premises, we can do that, and you can have search and auditing and e-discovery across those. And we've tried to sort of lean in to where we think that the technology is going, but also be pretty grounded in where most companies are today. And so I think that Bill's session was one of the top-rated sessions at Ignite, because we gave people choice, and it's obviously something, when we open it up a bit, that we're very welcome for feedback and questions on it.
Yeah. Shameless plug. I get to do Bill's session next week at Tech Summit in Sydney. So looking forward.
Sydney, Australia.
That's right.
That's nice.
Well, you'll be in where? Dublin.
I'll be in Dublin drinking beer in the rain. It's almost summertime in Sydney, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Wow.
So anyway, any questions? Before we keep going along here, I'm sure some of you may have questions for Jeff. And again, it's a rare treat to have Jeff in town. So any questions? Yes, sir.
So we're on-prem for our customized and confidential content and applications. Also in the cloud. What we're seeing is, we're on SharePoint 2013. What we're seeing is tech envy. For the people who are on-prem, who can move their app to Office 365, when they see all this great stuff come out in Office 365. And so we're going to be moving to a newer version, whether that's 16 or 19, we're not sure yet. But what can I do for my clients to give them a little bit of something, to help compensate for tech envy?
So let me repeat the question for folks watching online. So one of our colleagues here says, look, we're essentially somewhat hybrid, right? So they got on-prem, in the cloud. Folks that can't work in the cloud are kind of tech envy or fear of missing out with all the goodness of the cloud. What can he do to kind of give them a little something to get excited and kind of hold them until they can take advantage of that, right?
Yeah, and what you're going through is pretty common. It's what we went through internally. Microsoft internally has about 70,000 sites in our intranet, and the first 60,000 moved pretty quickly to the cloud. We switched all new provisioning to the cloud. There was a few sites in the end, sort of after the second phase, we were down to about 250 that stayed on premises, including our HR portal that had some pretty complicated custom security that they're in the process of redoing. So even we sort of went through that. So the first thing I'd say is it's great that for sites you're comfortable with, that you're going to the cloud and that people see what's there. We have released the 2016 servers, and the feature packs that spiffied up some of the UI, but not all the UI improvements that we're making every week in the cloud get to the on-prem product. At Ignite we announced in September that we would do another server, the 2019 server, and we've not been specific yet about what subset of the cloud comes on-prem. But the core, things that you'd see is the main user experience simplicity capabilities, without getting into details before the code's all been written, are going to come. So the simplified document library and list UI homepage. There are things that are tied to the cloud, like the graph for intelligence and groups for connecting it to things. But just the simpler, faster, client-side rendered performance is there. The other thing we've tried to do is make sure the mobile apps work with on-prem. The SharePoint mobile app on iOS and Android runs against the on-prem server. The OneDrive app on iOS has run against on-prem for a while. We just, I think in the last couple of weeks, updated the Android app to run against on-prem. So it's already the case that you can get some of the mobile capabilities against an on-prem server, but the things that you think of as the biggest UX improvements, we'll bring some of those to on-prem next year. And when more of the code's done early next year, we'll sort of be clear what that is. I'm not trying to be coy or anything. It's just until the code's done. I don't want to oversell. What's that? My buddy Bob Fox over there says you should join the TAP program. And since he's going to be calling you in the middle of the night to help you out, you can talk to him. Anyway. Thank you, Mr. Fox.
Thank you. Other questions? Oh, wait, back there. All right. Well, we have a mic for you, so we can.
Yeah.
what's the roadmap for Power Apps, and will it replace InfoPath, and will there be any conversion process for it?
Yeah, great question. We've tried to be clear, but not oversell. That when we announced in May of 16 our customization for sort of rapid development on SharePoint was Power Apps for building rapid solutions and Flow for tying them to different backends. We were sort of measured about it. We are, I think you've seen in the last 18 months, that our speed of execution has been great. That we let you build mobile apps connected to SharePoint. That's what NASCAR did. We let you build flows that give you workflow applications so you can tie SharePoint to Salesforce and SAP and Trello and GitHub and dozens of other things. But the capabilities in V1 of Power Apps were not where they were at InfoPath. At May of this year, so 12 months after that, we announced that web forms would be available for Power Apps inside of SharePoint. So not just standalone mobile apps, but the way you build a custom web form with different fields and data types and logic that can run on the client side is Power Apps. And we'd say at this point, 80% of the things you can do in InfoPath, you can do in Power Apps. In most cases, dramatically better. It's easier to create, and the user experience is better. But there are still some advanced logic things, master detail integration between our record and child records that we still have to work on. And so we're ticking that list, and we're very eager. We're doing it in the order that people want, but I think we've been unambiguously clear that our strategy, not just in SharePoint, but across Microsoft, is Power Apps. And I would say, what we said at Ignite is we think most applications can go, but there's still a few things that people, in terms of very complicated forms or offline forms capability, are probably the two things that people bring up the most. But I'm open to feedback because we prioritize those things based on what we hear in venues like this. But our goal is to be able to replace InfoPath.
Awesome. And we'll take more questions. So one of the thoughts that came to mind, right? Just kind of, I was reading the book, Satya's book, Hit Refresh, and you were there, mentioned. Yeah. And so what was it like, just to kind of going back to that, and we'll get back to this conversation because we're talking about all these innovations, right? Yeah. So from that period of time where Satya took over the organization, how did that change from just working with different groups and the mandate on this innovation in the cloud, and I know we had questions specific to Power Apps or even off-prem. Yeah. So how did that affect all this change?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things you sort of knew, but I didn't really appreciate, was how much metrics impact culture. I was just with our New York sales office today, and it was interesting, just talking about things like sales compensation and how that impacts the culture of the office in good ways and in some ways that sort of you want to tweak. But one thing Satya did when he came in, he had, we do an event, an offsite once a year with all the vice presidents of the company. And I was pretty proud of the fact that SharePoint was the fastest business to get to $1 billion in the history of the company. And Satya got up, this had been a few years before Satya was CEO, and he got up at the event and he said, I don't want anybody in product development to send me an email ever again celebrating revenues, ever. He said, I want you to send me mails only celebrating usage, because that is the indicator of value to customers. If we sell something that's nice for us, it's good for our business, we'll take care of our salespeople, we'll do that. But you product guys, I only want you to think about building things that get used and get recurring usage, because that's a sign that not just some IT department, but some end user who's trying to get work done values what you built and is choosing to use it over and over again. And we, it sort of resonated, and it was very powerful, and he said it in a sort of an impactful way. And I can't tell you how much every day it changes the culture of the company. That I have no idea what Accenture pays us. I just do know that every month I go look in, are more people using OneDrive or SharePoint? Are they coming back to it? Are they putting more data in the system? Are they collaborating with new people? One of the things I was really proud of, we've talked about Power Apps a few times. We launched Power Apps in the summer of last year, not this year, but the year before. And Power Apps shipped with like 40 connectors to line of business systems and Microsoft products, Exchange, SAP, SQL databases, and so forth. And the number one product that Power Apps connected to, and more importantly, to use the geeky data science term, the number one product that had retention, meaning that people who used it the first month came back the second month, by far was SharePoint. And Satya, that quarter, spoke about it in the earnings call and saying that we are using our products like SharePoint that have an amazing ecosystem to birth new technologies, be it artificial intelligence, machine learning, Power Apps. And so, every day he sort of encouraged us to reinforce the culture of the team. And so we had a couple of weeks ago, we had the checkpoints on some of the new UX stuff, including the OneDrive team. And I know how many people are using OneDrive through just saving documents in Office, saving it through the website, and then through the mobile UI. And to be honest, the mobile UI is a distant third. The vast majority of people using OneDrive to store documents are using it through Office, a little bit through Windows Explorer, and through the web UI. But it's a small percent on mobile. And the team, just in a culture where you're obsessed on users actually using the product, is the indicator of value, and frankly the leading indicator about whether the business is going to grow and be healthy. Like, we sort of dug into that and said, why are only X% of the OneDrive users using OneDrive on their phone? Is it because some IT guy is not trusting it to roll it out because it's some security thing? Is it because users aren't aware of it in the App Store? Is it because it's too hard to set up? And so we didn't think about, like, what are the 10 new features we should ship to OneDrive? We thought about, like, how could it get used? Because 100 million plus customers have bought the effing thing. Why aren't they using it? And we didn't celebrate the fact that all these people bought it or even downloaded it. And it wasn't a ratings thing. OneDrive is 4.7 stars rated in the iOS store, way ahead of Dropbox and Google Drive and so forth. So we have a top-rated app, and so we dug into it and we learned some things. So I would say the biggest thing that he did is really stress a data-driven culture where growth and adoption of the technology is the best leading indicator about whether you're delivering value to customers, and not revenue, which in the end will kind of be a trailing indicator. And it sounds like a simple thing, but really, really powerful.
I mean, that's what the whole company's riding on today, right? The whole idea of consumption. It's not just SharePoint or Office 365, but Azure Dynamics 365 as well.
Yeah, so we don't reward shipping, and we reward whether people use the stuff our engineers build.
Awesome. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, so Jeff, given that MS and SharePoint have won the cloud wars, and on that vein of user, as far as your compatibility, are you looking to increase the SharePoint usage across other web browsers, or is it everybody going to come to you?
Yeah, no, I think one of the things Satya did was open up the mandate to be not just great on Windows, but cross-platform. One of the first things we did when he became CEO was announce the Office support on the iPad. Some people in the room remember that we sort of kind of held back Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and the iPad because we thought it would undermine the value of Windows a little bit, or we sort of were insecure about that, and we realized that we can sort of simultaneously have both things in our head, which is we're going to make OneDrive and SharePoint, Office 365, Azure incredible on iOS, on Android, on the Mac, and Chrome browsers. We test on all those things. And the fact that I know like our App Store ratings on iOS and Android, 800,000 people have rated the OneDrive app on Android, which is something we're super proud of. We work great on Chrome, and it's simultaneously we're going to do unique stuff with Windows. So one of the biggest announcements we did a couple weeks ago was a feature called OneDrive Files on Demand, which is when you get Windows 10 with the fall update that we shipped on October 17th, you can look at all your files in the Windows Explorer without syncing them down to your machine unless you want to or unless you click on them and you're needed. So you might have, like in the case of, you might have petabytes of content in the cloud you want to look at on your PC. That's an example where we did something unique for Windows. But anything where it's technically feasible to do it on the Chrome browser or on other mobile platforms, we do it. In fact, pretty soon here, Apple's going to have a new update on iOS 11, and OneDrive and SharePoint and Word, Excel, PowerPoint, my teams got some pretty cool, exciting work, and we want to be the best cloud service against any platform and then do unique stuff with Windows.
I'm actually impressed OneDrive on the iPhone 10 took the notch.
Look at you ordering it. Yes, we did that work to work around the notch.
Yeah, so
I'm not sure that was good hardware design or not, but
it works.
But it works. 4.7 stars.
Yeah, I rated 5 stars.
Yeah, actually it rounds up. So anyway, that said, any place where I'm sort of like proud of what we did at Ignite or apps, part of it is making sure you guys are armed to tell the story. But in all seriousness, we haven't shipped the perfect product yet. We're still working on that, so please tell us what you'd like next and feedback. I always tell our team that we're going to be our biggest fans, but we're also going to be our biggest critics. And so I need to hear what you guys need from us.
We got one question about.
Hey Jeff, what can you tell us about the timelines around the new SharePoint Admin Center?
The new SharePoint Admin UI, that's a great question. I do not know the answer off the top of my head. For people who may not have know the details behind it, in the last 18 months, we've completely rewritten most of the SharePoint end user UI, except for the Content Hub UI, which people will remind me about. That's coming too. To make it much simpler, faster. But we announced in May, and we showed at Ignite the new admin UI rewrite, and I think the answer is pretty soon, like in the next, I think it's by end of year, but I don't want to promise that, and I'd rather than, I'll put on Twitter in the next 24 hours when it is, but it's pretty close.
Is there anything else to look forward to in that from what we've seen so far?
I think what we're trying to do is get the first phase out. So the ability, there's really two big things we're doing in the first phase. One is to get more actionable information on the homepage. So who the heck's using what? Like how much storage is in the thing, which sites are growing, so forth. And then a great list view. So you were telling me, I hope I'm not embarrassing you, were telling me earlier today, you have 350 sites in the cloud in your organization. You'd like to know, maybe let me email all the owners of the highly sensitive sites and remind them of our company policies. So a lot of the work we're doing is to streamline the UI so you can sort and filter and do operations on that. There's a long tail of things people do to configure search and so forth. We're not going to hold the first release for those, so you'll sort of live in a dual world for a little bit. It's not that we don't want to modernize it all. It's just we've got this first set targeted, and our goal was to get it out by the end of the year, but we're going to be quality driven, and I will tweet like when the exact date is when Bob Fox reminds me of it. And Bob says it's early next year.
And then I encourage you to make sure you check out Tech Community regularly.
Yeah.
Jeff's team, the entire Microsoft organization, posts updates there on a regular basis.
Yeah. The other thing I'd say is I'm pretty sure with fake data we put it in preview with fake data so you can try it out and give us feedback. So please do give us feedback.
So we got a question right here.
Yeah, Jeff. Given that SharePoint is a supporting technology to Microsoft Teams, how does the company articulate this collaboration story now that you've taken things out of SharePoint and put it in Teams, such as document libraries, site mailboxes, this kind of thing? Because we kind of confused as to what to use when.
Yeah, great question. So the question for people who didn't hear it is, how do we position Teams in SharePoint? You know, the way I think about it is collaboration is content, which is what SharePoint's about, and communication, which is email, chat, social. So email, Outlook, chat, Teams. And we're trying to bring the two together. That SharePoint can power your files in OneDrive, your beautiful, gorgeous intranet, your new custom business applications and Power Apps. But for people who want to live in sort of a chat workspace world, SharePoint's behind the scenes there. So you can have a chat going on about sales information, and then you can have your sales portal right in that same UI, hosted by Teams. It's just a SharePoint site. And so we are trying to be in SharePoint the world's most ubiquitous, flexible content management system, and sometimes that'll mean sort of powering web UIs, sometimes it'll be mobile UI, sometimes it'll be Office UI, and sometimes it'll be Teams. But it's not, it's like, what was the peanut butter, and you put chocolate in my peanut butter, you put, two great tastes. What was it? Reese's peanut butter cups. That you want chat, and you want content management, and we're the only vendor in the industry that gives you both in a seamless way. I'm not saying that's the only way people are going to see SharePoint. Sometimes they'll see it through OneDrive, sometimes they'll see it through an intranet. But we think having a chat application that integrates the data from SharePoint just is going to expand the usage. And if most of the time how you see SharePoint is through Teams, that's great. We love that.
Well, one suggestion I have at Ignite, there was a great session, I think it was a team session, and they presented this inner and outer loop concept. So I encourage you to check that out. It's an easy way to communicate when to use what and in what context.
Yeah. The one-liner I'd leave you with is SharePoint is the most flexible content management system in the industry, and that means working with every mode of communication, including chat.
All right, we'll take 2-3 more questions. So we got a couple going on here. I think Matt went first. Yeah.
Can you get one? No, you can't get one.
Jeff, question about search. So
Yeah.
now with Office 365, and there's just so many niches that become expertise, grab expertise in. Is there a unified vision for search? SharePoint offers such a powerful search environment. Office 365 in its various places offers all these different search boxes, and I'm never quite sure what box searches what.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question was about search unification. There is two parts to that. One is the back end, and the second is the front end. On the back end, we have something that we introduced at the SharePoint conference in 2014 that we then called the Office Graph. We now call it the Microsoft Graph because it not only is Office. And basically, we go beyond a traditional search index, which just mainly looks for keywords and indexes those, to we look at all the signals, what's going on. So I can go view, when I do a search for, say, pharmaceutical sales, if I communicate with Dux via a lot of emails, a document he's written is going to be boosted up. And so with this Microsoft Graph, we use machine learning to deliver, I think, the world's best enterprise search out of SharePoint. You might have seen at Ignite, we introduced what we think is the world's first personalized search. So if you're in sales or you're in engineering, you go into SharePoint and you type, pharma, PHAR, will autocomplete in sub-second, and you may see very different things based on your role in the organization and who you work with. And so that's the back end, this common Microsoft Graph technology. In fact, the team that builds that is in Oslo, Norway, and I go on Thursday to meet with them. And I'm going to meet with people from the FAST team who builds that, the Bing team, Microsoft research people, the Office team, the Outlook team, the SharePoint team, the OneDrive team. So, perhaps we could think of more sunny place to go in the middle of November than Oslo, Norway. But nonetheless, we will not be tempted to go outdoors, instead stay and do work. So that's the back end. On the front end, people have said to us, hey, when I'm talking to Cortana, when I'm searching for email in Outlook, when I'm searching for a document in OneDrive, when I'm searching for a conversation in Teams, when I'm searching for an intranet site in SharePoint, that should feel a little more consistent, and that's fair feedback. So about 3 months ago, I spun up a team to go look up designers and what we call program managers across different groups from their same teams, from Bing, from Office, from Outlook, and so forth, on what we call search coherence. And some of the answers can be different. Like, what you want in Outlook is a little different than what you want in SharePoint. Like, when you find an email, you might want to forward it, where you don't want to forward a document, so there will be some details. But I think it's very fair feedback that we've got sort of the world's best search technology for business under the covers, but we have a lot of different search UIs that we have to bring together, and we'll be working on that, and our goal is to, if you look at our rhythm in the last 2 years, announce something in May and show it at Ignite, that's sort of, that code hasn't been written yet, but that's sort of my goal for the team, is to sort of challenge our team to show some stuff in May and ship it in September next year.
Awesome.
You're welcome.
Ruben, you got a question?
The inner loop, outer loop really resonates with my clients. I love it.
Good. Satya actually came up with it.
That was my question.
I'll let him know that you liked it.
Yeah, that was my question. I read that you come up with it. I want to know if that is true. So.
Yeah, well, if you ask people, like, my kids are 23 and 21, and if you ask them if they had too many different communication channels, they'd look at you like, what a stupid question. And it's fun to ask them, like, if you're driving them to a play or a swim team or something like that, and sort of tell me the decision when you use SMS or Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp, and so they can explain it. And these are very smart people, and the logic isn't 100% consistent, but this is not a problem that they have at all. When you go to CIOs and say, hey, Office 365 is the most comprehensive collaboration product on the market. We have mail, chat, and social. Like, oh my God, we've got to tell all our employees when to use email, when to use chat, when to use social. We said, really? And we did that for like 2 years. We said, but, everybody, and eventually we realized, look, we have to provide some guidance here. And so the guidance we gave was what we call inner loop, how a team's working together. It may be a real estate project, it may be an ad campaign, it may be new car design. They're going to be working in a space in real time, and chat's probably the right metaphor for them. It's not going to be 1,000 people in this space, but chat's a pretty good metaphor for that. And so we call that inner loop, the people doing the inner loop of work. And then social is sort of more transient. We sort of know this from Yammer and Twitter, it's from Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, that say that new product development group, the sort of 50 women and men who are working together to build a new car or a new part of a car, want to go communicate that out to the sales force. And they may come and go in the forums and ask questions and so forth. And that's more of a social metaphor. The expectation is I can follow whatever conversations or groups or people I want. But if I never say anything, it's okay, I can lurk. And so that's what Yammer is about. And so we're trying to find the most pithy way to explain this to people so that people didn't freak out. And the fact, somehow that we had 3 different ways for people to talk to each other was confusing. And so this inner loop, outer loop thing, we rolled out at Ignite. Honestly, I say this, we're still in learning mode, so the fact that you're saying it worked for you is great. There are still people who tell us they wish they had one thing, and to which I say, well, okay, do you want us to kill email? No, email can't go away. And then you say, like, should we not have chat? And well, no, anyway. So that's what we're going with. The good thing for SharePoint people is however you talk, whether you use email, social, or chat, you are talking about content in SharePoint. So no matter what communication mode wins, SharePoint wins too. So we got 100% coverage. So I'm feeling pretty good. And but that's, it's definitely something we get feedback on. And honestly, as people enter the workforce in their 20s, they're going to influence how companies work based on what they've done on Messenger and WhatsApp. And we will adapt with it, even if it means some churn and change for people 10, 20, 30 years older than them. Because if we don't adapt with the ways people in their 20s want to communicate with, we will become obsolete, and we have no interest in doing that. We want to lead and prosper in the next era of computing and social work. So.
Awesome. So we'll take one more question. Yes, sir.
So, hi Jeff. I can finish with kind of futuristic question. You mentioned something about AI and AR. Like, can you give us like more details about what is in the exciting things in the roadmap about AI and AR from like SharePoint and like Office 365?
I would love to, but not today. Las Vegas, May. Come there. Let's see what.
There you go. So his answer, he'll hold it till May.
Yeah.
Just going to Vegas. So Jeff, I want to make sure folks get to chat with you.
Yeah.
Any word of advice before we wrap this portion of the evening?
No, just again, thank you. And we've tried to be clear on what we're doing, but doesn't mean it's all right. And so I'd love, however you want, here in our communities, on social media, give us frank feedback. The fact that you care is great. I'd much rather you tell me if you don't like something than you sort of walk away. And so thank you for supporting us. Thank you for supporting this event. And drink his beer because that's part of the fun tonight.
All right.
Thanks.
Jeff Teper, thank you.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, we're done for now, yeah. Yeah, I was like, oh, thank you. Oh, Jeff, I'll take it. Thank you. Like that.